Welcome to the Wealth Renegade podcast. I'm your host, Robby Butler. Have you celebrated your financial independence today? Good morning, everyone. I am so excited to share this podcast with you today. We have a friend of mine who we met through the networking effects that occur in the private placement world. In such a unique industry, which has so much built-in obscurity, you have to find friends who can help you navigate. And so I brought my friend on, Pat Zingarella. Pat, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, Robby, happy to be here. Excited.
Yes. So you've built a business, and we will talk about how that business is designed to serve limited partners in their vetting of syndication opportunities. But before we talk about that, tell us, what's your backstory? How did you come into this industry? How did you first get into entrepreneurship itself and to this point in your journey?
Yeah, definitely. And I could talk about this for an entire call. So this is a good place to start. But no, my entrepreneurial journey started, I was W-2 employee. I have been a sales guy my entire life, corporate America. I worked for a company called Gartner. We were the leading provider of IT research and advisory services. And honestly, this story will kind of explain later on, but this is where a lot of the business model that we're working with came from. But my entrepreneur journey, because when I was prospecting for sales opportunities, I would always have the Bigger Pockets podcast on, reading the, Rich Dad, Poor Dads of the world, and realized that there was a world much bigger than I was experiencing out there. And so I started joining masterminds, started hiring coaching while I was in my W-2. And I remember there was this like triggering effect all at once where I had a stepbrother who was getting really good at boxing, and he was fighting in Golden Gloves, and the national championship was down in Tennessee. And I was having this internal battle if I should take PTO, waste a week and go down there, or, I should ask my VP if I should go. And in my mind, I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is a pivotal moment in my younger brother's career, and I have to ask permission if I can go support him. And I'm balancing it against my sales opportunities that minimally impact my life. And so that's when I started really getting serious. And so right around that same time, I was also buying real estate, small multifamily of my own, trying everything in the world from wholesaling to laundromats and everything in between. And eventually I quit my W-2 job. Through the masterminds, it's interesting. I'll regress a little bit, but through these masterminds, I was getting around these people who were sharing their stories, and they were making tens of thousands of dollars a day, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, millions and millions of dollars a year. And I was in my W-2 job, overly excited about a $15,000 a year on target earning raise, which in the sales world is your base plus your commission. So it's not even guaranteed. And so once I started getting around these people, I was like, oh man, like the life I live, well, the life I want is out there, but there's a massive distance between where I am and where I want to be. And so that really sparked my journey of entrepreneurship, investing, and things like that. And I'll tell you one thing, man, like, I did everything wrong along the way, still very much doing a lot of things wrong, but the lessons and progression that comes from you can't get that type of education elsewhere. And so I don't know how much detail you want me to get in, but that's sort of where it led to. Started getting into real estate investing on my own, started going bigger and bigger, moved into commercial. And this story will kind of sidebar off into, again, what led to InvestClearly, but eventually started doing sales consulting on my own. I was the outsourced sales guy for a number of different companies, realized very quickly that the services industry wasn't for me because I went from having one boss to having about 10 bosses I was reporting to.
Thanks.
And then, structured my life a little bit more towards lifestyle versus maximizing return. Did a lot of traveling with my wife before we, had our son. And now we're really back to that, how big and fast can we grow it mindset.
That's awesome. So what I heard was it's the financial awareness of the possibility out there that really sparked you to, wake up and see how much you could be accomplishing. Be structured around lifestyle while you had the opportunity to do so. But it sounds like you also identified an opportunity that then led you to say, well, this is what we want to maximize very specifically. So what was the entry into the world of private placements and syndicated real estate? How did you get the first visibility into that to even identify that there was a missing link somewhere that you then capitalize on?
100%. So we back up maybe 2 or 3 years. I actually invested, you could call it investing. It wasn't a sponsor, but it was definitely someone who was a media personality, a growing media personality. He was king of the world in every mastermind group. And I know, liked, trusted this guy, did deals with him. And let's just say it had the possibility of having the biggest negative impact, both financially, psychologically, and on my life that you can ever imagine. And so that negative experience triggered with a couple other things. It is really what led me into this. So I was in a position where I had a bunch of cash
Mhm.
and I started thinking about being an LP and didn't, first of all, didn't know a lot about it, but also couldn't find a lot of resources outside the influence of the GP, right? Meaning articles that saying, hey, here are the top 10 questions you should ask a GP before investing, but it's written by a GP. And so at the same time, a client that I was working with, they do accredited investor lead gen. So they provide digital marketing services to GPs. And so I would have conversations with sponsors all day long. And so I would talk to maybe 10 self-storage syndications in a day. And I realized that like I couldn't figure out the difference between any of them.
Mm.
On top of that, there was a lot of different, I would say, KPIs or metrics that they were benchmarking themselves off of. And it was very different across GPs. So it was very difficult to make that standard comparison to figure out who was the best for me.
No
And
apples
so
to apples to be able to look at.
exactly. And something like that, what I mean as an example is some people would advertise assets under management, some people would advertise unit count, some people would advertise square footage. It's all pretty much how much do we have, but it's very difficult for me to be like, okay, well, in the level of education I was at least. So at the same time, when I was exploring making these investments, I was reaching out to LPs, really finding out how they're making their decisions, where they're finding sponsors to invest in. And a lot of the conversations I would have would be like, I find people I know, like, and trust. And then they would bring up almost internet personalities with the highest follower count. And that happened a couple different times, or they would tell me, hey, we find sponsors at meetups, we get referrals, I read about them on forums, but it's really nothing outside of that one-to-one contact. And then when I started looking online, I really didn't see a resource that had everybody all in one place. And so I really got a peek, I would say, behind the counter doing that sales opportunity with the sponsors because I learned a lot about them, but also kind of learned that like I need a little more. And honestly, Robbie, like if you know anything about the disc profile, high I am a lethally social individual, which I almost can't trust my due diligence analytic side of my brain because it's so far outweighed by my likelihood of trust that I was like, I'm struggling because I need additional support when doing this evaluation. And so with that experience, coupled with what I did in my W-2 world, what we used to do is it's a very similar to what InvestClearly is, but on the software side of things. So we would provide unbiased and objective advice to people selling software on their buyers. And there was also a product called, well, it was ultimately designed for people evaluating software can go online, view the software, learn more about the company, see all of their competitors products all in one place and read reviews on their experience. And so what we did is we ultimately applied that logic to the passive investing.
So your history informed so much of the opportunity you identified to help passive investors see more clearly what is going on in the industry. Statistically, the fascinating thing about private placements is not only are they by default private, but 93 or maybe it's 92% of all private placements can't even be advertised. They are
Mhm.
all 506B
Yep.
syndications that are automatically difficult to see into because you can't see the public facing persona. Even when you can get the public facing persona, you have an issue where if you're talking to a professional marketer, they can sound like the greatest investor in the world. And yet, marketing and investment experience are not mutual cousins. They don't automatically imply great business. They don't automatically imply great investments. So explain to us a little bit what your company Invest Clearly does now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought up the marketing doesn't equal experience because when I was going through building this company, I have talked to people that were frustrated with their operators that have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers. But I also learned about operators that have been outperforming their projected returns and over communicating that could barely put together a PowerPoint deck.
Right.
So it's an amazing balance that, people really don't know about. And so what Invest Clearly does is it brings all of this into one place. So what it's designed to be, and so where we're at is we're still pre-launch in the fact that we're building enhancements as we go, and we really haven't gone to market. This is really the first, I would say, mass audience that I'm doing right now. A lot of everything I've been done so far has been one-to-one. But what we do is we are a sponsor review platform and deal directory. So what this is designed to do is have every sponsor that's ever existed in the real estate syndication world. And we've also got a deal directory of every deal that's been done from 2013 to present, and those deals will be connected to those sponsors. Now, to align to your comment on 506Bs, correct. So we aren't, our 506B deals have to be closed and older than a year. So
Mm,
we're not looked at as participating in solicitation. It's really company level. But every 506D deals, I'm sorry, 506C deals, especially the active ones, will be on there. And the goal of this is twofolds. One, to support the LP, but very specifically to support the GP as well. And the way this supports the LP is it's a place for them to go, be able to find and evaluate GPs outside of the conversations with investor relations, outside of the influential marketing that the GPs are putting out there, but based on the basis of other LPs' experiences, because those LPs will be able to write review if they participated in the deal. And so it allows them to make a decision, really an unbiased and objective source of information to support them with that decision. On the other side of things, it also allows them to see every deal that's currently available. And so right now, the journey of the LP is you meet a sponsor and you wait for that sponsor to have a deal that matches your criteria. And the other side really doesn't exist. So what we've built out is we built out a deal directory where it's going to be every 506C deal and every 506B deal that's closed. Number one, so you can go in, filter by financial metrics that you're looking for, find a deal that matches your criteria, and then evaluate the sponsor beyond that. And so it's really going to allow you to see everything that's available in real time. Now, for the GP, the value is this is going to be a place for them to potentially win new capital simply by being transparent. And the way our business model works is this is 100% an LP first platform. We don't sell LP leads or contact information. We don't code GP. We're not broker dealers, and we're not commissioned by money raised. By staying completely out of the deal, we earned and retain the trust of that LP, knowing that there's nothing the GP can do to influence or change rankings or ratings. On the other side of things, the way GPs do work is it's valuable to them. It's valuable to them to use an uninfluenced source to send their investors to receive real honest feedback on them, to then say, hey, look, you don't know whether or not you want to place money with me. Go look at the 20 reviews we have on InvestClearly that we could not influence. Did we ask someone to write it? Absolutely. But no one that had a negative experience is going to write a good review, and then make your decision from there. It's really that objective source, because right now GPs are collecting reviews and they're offering testimonials or reference calls. Like, those are cherry picked. Like, the investors know that. And so this is a completely uninfluenced source.
So I'm thinking about how entrepreneurs build businesses typically. It is often because of an abiding faith in their ability to achieve a vision. So you, in your your limited partnership experience, when you were a limited partner, an LP placing capital with another sponsor, you had a negative experience, or you had the potential for a negative experience. And that has driven you to say, this can be better for an industry. I can shape this industry in a more positive way. So in order to make sure that people see essentially what you're offering is the way to it's really the convenient title, invest clearly. What do you recommend to people who also want to make sure they're avoiding negative experiences? What, in addition to visiting your website, should they be doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, in the experience that I described, I wasn't even an LP. It was, I just trusted someone. I gave that person money. It was more of a one-to-one transaction, but that
Mm,
coupled with my desire to become an LP, but not seeing a resource to avoid that experience. And so, that guy I invested with did what he did to me to 60 other investors. So my thought process was, I caught this early. If something like Invest Clearly existed, I probably could have prevented a lot of tragedy
yeah.
in that. But other ways, I mean, education is critical. It's absolutely critical, but there's a difference between reading it and understanding it. And then reading it and understanding it and then asking for support on the things you don't understand. And that's what we're doing here. The purpose of Invest Clearly is to provide clarity to blind spots, one way or another. And I'll give you an example, right? You get a PPM or you get some sort of financial documentation. It's 100 pages long. Are you investing on hype? Are you investing on excitement, emotion, or do you truly understand that? And if you don't, where do you go? And so I think there's a depth of due diligence that's absolutely critical that we may not be seeing right now. And that's the first thing is you've got to check the emotion. It's so funny. That's so contradictory from me because I'm so like excitable and I'm like talking to myself right now. But checking the emotion and understanding that you're not investing to appease someone socially. You're investing to supplement your, I would say, risk and lack. For example, if you're a W-2 employee, high net worth, you don't have the time, you want to supplement that time with someone who has a ton of experience. If
Right.
you don't know how to underwrite deals of that size, you want to supplement it with someone who can do it and do it great. So leveraging third party uninfluenced sources to support that education and decision is what's absolutely critical.
As a real estate investor myself, so we both understand what it's necessary to actually walk out into the world and acquire cash flowing real estate or high appreciation opportunities. And yet we cannot be everywhere at once. And for the actual active investor, where syndications step into play is if they want access to a marketplace
Mhm.
and they don't want to build out the immense infrastructure necessary to do all that work. They don't want to find equally high quality property management. They don't want to go and meet with new brokers and build new relationships and get into new channels of deal flow. If they're of real scale, if you're buying 100-unit apartment complexes, okay, how do you vet your property management's marketing opportunities? And how do you make sure you're assessing the competitors in the apartment world so that you know you're buying an apartment that has the right amenities or the right absorption rate or has the right traffic patterns or the right quantity of parking for the hyperlocal submarket? That is so much to learn. And yet, for the active real estate investor, hey, you can dabble in markets with limited partnerships that you invest into to be able to say, all right, I'm going to watch someone else build, if it's an apartment complex, build their apartment complex or hold their property. And I can pick up my little threads and I can determine, okay, would I be smarter to run in that direction with 10 times the capital? Or do I now want to move in a different direction? So the ability to leverage other people's experience for the limited partner is enormous. In your vision, where do you see Invest Clearly going in the long run? How do you see this impacting the industry?
Yeah. A couple different things. Like the biggest one is I hope it standardizes the industry. I think there's a big gap between regulation and transparency. And I really hope it standardizes it in a way where it brings clarity, there's an understanding, and it's easier for LPs to make those decisions. But my vision right now, it's very interesting because it's almost contradictory to how you're supposed to think about building a business. Right now, my only goal is building the best next feature set and getting the next review because I know those two things will support the next LP or de-risk the next LP. So my long-term goal, I hope every single accredited investor and unaccredited investor considering syndication or fund investing uses Invest Clearly. I hope every single GP out there uses Invest Clearly in a way where, hey, I'm a good sponsor. I'm a great operator. I have thousands of raving fans that would invest and reinvest, and I hope they use it. And I hope the right LP finds the right operator and like all of the uncertainty in this is minimized through transparency.
Mhm.
And I hope it also regulates a lot of uncapped marketing budgets or audience building initiatives. Because, like I said, we are absolutely not here to be the GP Reaper. We are here to highlight the great ones and make sure LPs find them and make their decision from there. Because right now, I've talked to operators that have been through the last downturn and they have had multiple exits, but their digital presence is minimal. And it's just not something they excited about. They've grown by word of mouth, but they do want to add a zero to their assets under management, but it's just not their strong suit. And then I've talked to LPs that have invested with the big influencers and there's capital calls and pauses distribution. Communications aren't going well, but they're still raising money. And it's just like there's a balance here that needs to be met where who finds what when, you know?
Having a limited partner ask about the dirty laundry, the deals gone bad, the partnerships that you wish you had known more about before you entered into them refreshes me so much when I'm in that conversation, equally in talking with other general partners in the industry and hearing about their $4 million marketing budget. And I go, oh my goodness, some people are struggling to raise that in a year.
Yeah,
Yet that's what they're spending on their marketing. And again, these are only indicators where all of this is to gain clarity. Just because you're a sophisticated marketer does not mean you're a poor investor, but to be able
exactly.
to see very clearly what have other people's experience been when looked at from the light of truth. So it's not the cherry picked resume. It's not the cherry picked deal done that says this is why we're good. It's not the cherry picked investor that says they're a great partner. I'd give them my whole net worth and everything else I could give them. To be able to have objective truth be viewed is a huge asset. So I'm excited to see where your business goes. For the investors out there that want to tap into what you're doing, how do they follow along? Where do they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a couple different options. I mean, I'm on every social media out there. I said what I'm starting to get early, but invest clearly, go investclearly.com. That's where you can go in, create a profile, pop around on it, write a review if you've done deals, find operators. My email, pat@goinvestclearly.com. Instagram is my full name at Pasquale Zingarella. Same with Facebook, LinkedIn, and then Twitter at Pasquale_Z. I'm just getting rolling on Twitter. It's been a learning curve for me, I'll tell you that much.
Well, for the LPs out there, there are so many resources that are available to you to understand the syndications when they're provided by the general partners. But what Pat is offering is an objective view, something that is divorced from the actual general partners' clutches to be able to say, are these reviews part of what a deal is describing? Are these investors truly satisfied with their experience? And so go check them out at goinvestclearly.com and all the social media handles out there. Pat, thanks so much for being here. Look forward to seeing your business grow and begin to establish a place in the market as a place where people can go to invest clearly.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie. Thanks a lot.